This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Premier Wab Kinew held his first cabinet meeting today. Those who work on the front lines of Winnipeg's drug addiction crisis tell us they're eager to work with this new government. Past efforts to set up services like a supervised consumption site found little support from the outgoing PCs. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
So when someone comes into our bathroom, we have opportunity to lock the door from there.
This bathroom at Nine Circles Community Health Centre has been adapted due to Winnipeg's drug crisis. A flashing light set to a timer lets Kim Bailey and other staff know when someone has been in there too long and might need help.
We don't, it's not allowed to use drugs on our sites as it is with anybody else, I suppose, but we recognize that that might happen.
Harm reduction advocates say informal arrangements like this are no substitute for a supervised consumption site. A report published last year laid out the steps the government could take to set one up. Those proposals got a cold reception from past provincial leaders. But yesterday, newly sworn-in Housing, Addictions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith reiterated her support.
We can't give you any timeline on that, certainly, but certainly we're committed to opening one up. We saw over 400 deaths last year, and we don't want to see those rise.
Sunshine House has operated the city's only official overdose prevention site using this mobile home. Smith says they've been in talks with Sunshine House and other potential partners like Main Street Project. Executive Director Jamil Mahmoud says he's pleased to work with the new provincial government.
The spirits are up, we're very excited, and I know that across the sector, everyone's very excited about this. We know it's not going to be everything happening right away, quick solutions.
So far, the new government has only committed to opening one site. Mahmoud says Main Street Project is open to the idea of hosting the site, but both he and Kim Bailey at Nine Circles say more may be needed.
And there's pockets of folks using drugs in all various neighborhoods. So having opportunity for people in all neighborhoods have access to a program like that is really, really important.
No one knows when a supervised consumption site in Winnipeg could open or where it would go. But it's safe to say that the election of the new government has renewed optimism among advocates. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Premier Wab Kinew is hinting there could be changes at the top of Manitoba Public Insurance. The new Premier says the situation at the Crown Corporation is one of the top priorities for his new government. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
Congratulations, everyone, on being officially sworn in, and welcome to our first cabinet meeting. We are all eager to get to work and serve the people of Manitoba.
Premier Wab Kinew met with his new cabinet for the first time today. He spoke about handing out mandate letters, getting briefings from senior civil servants, and making changes to the boards of Crown corporations. He says he'll start with Manitoba Public Insurance, whose workers have been on strike since August 28th.
I think the situation at Manitoba Public Insurance with the strike is the one that demands the most immediate attention.
Kinew said changes to MPI's board could be announced as soon as tomorrow. Changes to boards at Manitoba Hydro and Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries may come after that. Kinew also said his government will retain most of the senior public servants who are in place under the PCs.
We are probably keeping the majority of deputy ministers in the positions where they were because our team wants to hit the ground running.
Kinew also said it's time to be nice to civil servants, suggesting they were discouraged or ignored when the Progressive Conservatives were in power.
One of the things that I want to say to our team is that it's time for us to give the civil service in Manitoba a hug.
The PCs declined to comment. So did Manitoba Public Insurance, who said they've not been advised of any changes to their board. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Just minutes ago, Kinew announced a new person will be in charge of all of Manitoba's public servants. Sarah Thiel is the new clerk of Executive Council. That's the most senior position in the public service, the most powerful person in government who is not an elected official. Thiel served under the PCs as Deputy Minister of Transportation. She takes over from Catherine Gerard, the last clerk in Heather Stephenson's inner circle. We will bring you analysis of this new NDP NDP cabinet and the challenges it faces in just a few minutes. But first, we are learning more about a man who died following an interaction with Winnipeg police. The man began having difficulty breathing while he was being arrested on Sherbrooke and Broadway this past Sunday. He was pronounced dead in hospital shortly after. Matt Humphrey has the details.
Webequie First Nation has identified the man as Elias Whitehead. Today we saw a statement from the chief of Webequie who extended condolences to Whitehead's family. Webequie First Nation is a remote community north of Thunder Bay. And leadership there says the community is still in the early stages of coming to grips with the situation. On social media, we've seen an outpouring of support and sympathy for Whitehead. Manitoba's police watchdog, the IIU, is investigating the circumstances around his death. Police say they were called to Sherbrooke regarding a man acting erratically in traffic. And during Whitehead's arrest, officials say he had trouble breathing. Police say the fire paramedic service gave him medical care on site, but he was moved to Health Sciences Centre where he was pronounced dead. Footage of the arrest was taken by witnesses. That footage has since been published by the CBC. And a spokesperson for Webequie First Nation is asking media to respect his family's privacy as they grieve. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Israel-Hamas war is stirring up difficult emotions for people around the world and for many right here in Winnipeg. People are afraid to express their views as they grapple with devastation, heartbreak, and grief. CBC's Emily Brass spoke with community members about how they're handling tough conversations.
Free Palestine! It was called at the last minute, a rally for Palestine following the deadly attack on a hospital in Gaza.
We call on our politicians to work towards a ceasefire.
Andrea Jans helped organize a rally on Wednesday, not as part of a group, but as a Canadian with Palestinian roots and loved ones in Ramallah.
I think it's just been going on too long. It's too much. It's too much for people to bear. People are hurting on both sides.
At Congregation Etz Chaim, Rabbi Kliel Rose says his entire congregation is affected by the violence.
There's just an incredible sense of sadness, confusion.
Someone with ties to the synagogue is in Gaza, believed to be a hostage of Hamas, peace activist and former Winnipegger Vivian Silver. Rose's own brother lives in Israel. He says he thinks about him all the time, and so do his parents.
The worry that they are carrying about their child, their son-in-law, and their grandchildren is beyond what most people can really comprehend. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
We need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Harold Schuster condemns the vicious attacks by Hamas, but says, as a Jew, it can be hard to speak out against Israel's role in the long-standing conflict.
I know of some who have spoken up, and it's caused significant rifts within their family. They can't gather. My family, a small family, and we just don't have those conversations.
Rabbi Rose says he prays for a solution that respects Palestinian rights, but says for now, the focus is on healing for his congregants and his Palestinian neighbors.
We are, in some ways, being forced to take sides. And I think one can stand for Israel and also recognize the devastation that is already taking place in Gaza to the innocent Palestinians.
Many at the rally also hope for respectful conversations with the goal of understanding and peace.
It has to start at home. We can't have this divisiveness here. That's something that I'd really hope we can work towards.
Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
15 more paramedics will be hired to work in the city of Brandon. The city announced funding today from Shared Health to staff a third ambulance in Brandon, a city of more than 50,000 people. 10 paramedics will work for Brandon Fire and Emergency Services. The remaining 5 new paramedics will be hired to work at Brandon's new police detention center. Shared Health is giving the city of Brandon $2.2 million a year to fund these new positions. And Brandon will also see improvements at its airport. The federal government is funding a $10 million upgrade to the pavement on the runway, the taxiway, and the apron. Brandon's airport currently sees daily scheduled WestJet flights to and from Calgary. Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now on another beauty of a day.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous out there. Did start with some fog, though.
Yeah, some patchy fog. And as we were talking about yesterday, east of the Red River Valley, a lot of the fog pictures I was seeing. And I want to show you, I want to start with the visibility forecast here because it's almost a repeat of last night. So what we're looking at there is Futurecast. And this is I'm going to have to change a couple things here because this is actually the visibility forecast that I do want to show you, talking about some fog east of the Red River Valley again tonight. And it could get us down to about 500 meters visibility as we get into the morning in areas like Beausejour and Lac du Bonny. So we could see these visibilities really dropping. Now here in Winnipeg, overnight we could see some lower visibilities, but by about 7:30 in the morning, we're back up to 10 kilometers. Kind of like that this morning. Didn't see a whole lot around the Winnipeg area, but these areas east of Lake Winnipeg, even if we go forward to about 10 in the morning, we're still seeing some very low visibilities out east of that Red River Valley. So something to be aware of in the morning. 14 degrees right now. The high today was 17, west winds at 7 kilometers per hour. Through the day, I was seeing on-hour winds at 2 or 4 kilometers per hour, so really not much of a wind today. That will change as we head into tomorrow. Satellite radar, a little bit of cloud out to the east of us around the Winnipeg area, very bright to the southwest, kind of cloudy across the north. The sun's peeking through the little holes in the clouds in northern Manitoba, but that cloud will thicken up tonight, and I'll show you in the Manitoba forecast a little later, and I'll show you right now on Futurecast that we are expecting some rain across the north. 5 to 10 millimeters, the Pas, Flin Flon starting in the morning. It works its way over into Norway House and Thompson with about 5 more millimeters of rain, and we could see some showers in the morning in the south, but this weakens across the south and just provides areas around Winnipeg, the Red River Valley, and southeast with a chance of a sprinkle midday, and then we get bright again on into the afternoon as the rain moves out to the east. Northwestern Ontario, you can expect just showers off and on through the day tomorrow. And we will have windy conditions, and not quite as windy Saturday, still cloudy on Saturday, but we are looking at conditions to be rather cloudy on Saturday anyway. All right, as we get into tomorrow's winds, northwest 40 gusting to 60. Up around the lakes, we could see those winds gusting to about 70 kilometers per hour. And I'll show you the long-range forecast as well a little bit later, Janet. And yeah, at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about mid-next week, where we could even see some snow.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Thanks, John. Christopher Adams joins us now. He's adjunct professor of political studies at the University of Manitoba. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Hi, Janet. Nice to be with you again.
So the cabinet has met for the first time. What do you make of who's been named to cabinet?
Well, of course, it's a very diverse group, and that's been getting a lot of attention. You know, both visible minorities as well as individuals who are trans and self-described as queer. So it's a cabinet that we've never seen before, and it makes it for a very exciting time. You know, watching the media coverage of what was happening at the Leaf yesterday, the swearing in of the new cabinet and the premier, it was something that I've never seen before, but it's I think a lot of people are quite excited about it. I would say that it's a cabinet of people who will be new to running a portfolio. Kostyshin up in Dauphin is really the only person who's had experience in a cabinet before. So it's an interesting time, and it's also, I think, breathtaking for a few individuals.
And now they get to work. For the first time, we have a minister whose the title of the portfolio actually includes the word addictions. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, Bernadette Smith, representing a core area of the city where addictions is a problem. Addictions are also a problem across the province, and almost everybody's been affected in one way or another. I would say that if there are many places, many changes that we can see in priorities for this government compared to the last one, and one of them is in the area of addictions, safe sites for people to take drugs and things like that. So She has a big order to deal with, but I think she has the entire the new cabinet behind her, and the premier in his promises during the campaign. You know, new leaders often look at the first 100 days. You know, John F. Kennedy did that. Lester Pearson in the 60s declared the first 60 days, but it's to set the pathway. And the longer you go into government, the more you're doing administration and management rather than new initiatives. So this will be a crucial time. As you know, Janet, there are many promises made during this campaign. You know, the idea of the gasoline tax, while inflation is high, freezing hydro rates, things of that nature. And there are also some almost insoluble problems that have a long period of time that'll need a lot of attention, such as getting our health sector in good shape, and also correcting homelessness has been a promise in the next if they last for 2 terms. So it's a big ask of this cabinet, but it's they'll all be working to try to get things underway.
Lots of people will be watching for them to fall. What pitfalls do you think they need to watch out for?
Well, I think the province is in better economic condition. The finances of the government are better condition than we all thought at the beginning of the campaign. Just a few weeks before Election Day, the announcement was made by Finance that the monies were better. We've got more transfers coming in from the federal government. So I think we're as a province, we're in better shape than we thought we were a few months ago. Also, you know, the PCs have laid a fair amount of groundwork in healthcare. You know, expanded spending on nurses training, recruiting nurses, settling with the doctors of Manitoba. So there is in some cases there is a good position for the NDP coming into power. So they aren't left with nothing to work with when they come in. So anyway, I don't think it's I don't think they're in a dire situation. They're in a surplus situation compared to where they thought a few months ago. So I think many people are feeling fairly positive about what will be happening in the next 6 months.
Well, we know you'll be watching. Thank you so much, Christopher Adams, for joining us today.
Thanks, Janet. Always nice to talk to you.
Desperately needed humanitarian aid is expected to start moving into the Gaza Strip tomorrow as Israel continues airstrikes on Gaza and rockets fly on both sides of the border between Israel and Lebanon. We'll bring you the latest from the region after the break. Aid groups are raising alarms over civilians trapped in Gaza. They say the several trucks expected to cross into the besieged Palestinian territory tomorrow, bringing food, water, medicine, are nowhere near enough. All this comes as worries of an imminent ground war by Israel grow. Margaret Evans has this report from Jerusalem.
In Israel, preparations for an anticipated ground invasion of Gaza well underway. Reservists from across the country and around the world refreshing their training, some 360,000 in all. Their cars clogging roads outside reserve bases right across the country. Israeli-Canadian Noy Leib, living in New York, booked a flight as soon as he heard about the Hamas attacks.
The most emotional plane ride I've been at in my life. And it's just, you're preparing yourself for war.
Trained as a machine gun operator, he believes Israel has no choice.
Having those videos of that torture being sent to those families, and it's worse than ISIS. So my personal opinion is that we have to attack, we have to be strong.
When the ground war will come is anybody's guess. Israel's defense minister has told reservists to use the time to prepare. Thanks, guys. We count on you. Good luck, he's saying. And anyone who now sees Gaza from a distance will see it from the inside. I promise you. In Gaza, on the inside, Israel's air war is now in its 13th day. And those who fled the bombs in the north are finding them in the south too. Another airstrike in Han Yunis today. Parents struggling to protect their families.
Hello.
Hi, Muhammad. It's Margaret.
Oh, hi, Margaret. Hi.
Muhammad Abu Sada is a political science professor from Gaza City, now living in cramped quarters with 60 other people.
It's very crowded with little water. That's the most pressing issue for all of us here in Khan Yunis.
That and trying to calm his daughter's fears.
She has been screaming. She has been crying for most of the time because of the sound of the bombing, because of knowing about the death of one of her classmates.
He says Western governments have given Israel the green light to wreak the carnage it has on a long, narrow strip of land with nowhere to run.
What you hear from the U.S. and Western government is that Israel has the right to defend itself, which is fine with me. No one can debate the issue of government or sovereign state to defend themselves, but not to go after children, not to go after civilians, and not to go after hospitals. That's what I'm talking about.
The promise, negotiated by the U.S. President Joe Biden, of just 20 humanitarian aid trucks to be allowed into Gaza remains unfulfilled, now expected tomorrow. Aid agencies say that is a drop in an ocean of need. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Defense Minister Bill Blair gave an update today on efforts to get Canadians who want to leave out of Israel.
The Canadian Armed Forces continue to conduct flights from Tel Aviv to Athens, carrying Canadian citizens, permanent residents, family members, and others to safety. And today, the military conducted its 15th flight since October the 12th. And in fact, military flights have now brought over 1,500 Canadians out to safety. We will continue these flights as long as is required.
Defense Minister Bill Blair. Tensions have been rising as well along Israel's northern border with Lebanon ever since the attacks by Hamas on October 7th. Hezbollah, a political party and armed movement in Lebanon, supports Hamas. Its soldiers and Israeli troops have been exchanging gunfire with increased frequency. As Chris Brown reports, this is where an escalation in the conflict could happen.
On Israel's northern border, there's already a shooting war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but it's intermittent and low intensity. Should the war against Hamas escalate, this could be the flashpoint. Our crew has come to the fruit farm of Nadav and Adam Ishak, where the border with Lebanon is under 2 kilometers away.
Everything to the right of that wall, that's Lebanon.
Yes.
They told us Hezbollah fires artillery in this direction daily. And in the village right next door, this strike hit today, says Israel's military. This was their response. We feel like they're testing us because they see civilians and they shoot a missile, he said. While both Hamas and Hezbollah are backed by Iran, Hezbollah is far more powerful. Its leadership boasts of having more than 100,000 fighters and long-range missiles powerful enough to destroy high-rises in Israeli cities. The possibility of opening new fronts against the Zionist regime is inevitable, said Iran's foreign minister in an ominous warning. Here on the border, the fear is that Hezbollah has already laid the groundwork for an attack by digging tunnels under the Israeli defenses. Several were found near here a few years ago. It's terrifying when you realize the ability that they have to come in here.
It's eerily quiet here. This is one of 28 communities along the border with Lebanon that Israel's military has ordered evacuated, but not everyone can leave.
The brothers say they have to stay because someone needs to run the farm. Their families have moved to a university dorm an hour south. Idan, Nadav's wife, says she hears his anxiety when they talk on the phone.
I think that it's the first time in my life that I heard from him that he's afraid also.
Although it's safer here for their children, she says she's conflicted about leaving.
If everyone from the border would go to the center of Israel, what would happen in the borders? So the center would be the border.
The family keeps a reminder of the last time Hezbollah and Israel fought in 2006.
Katyusha.
Part of a rocket that destroyed buildings on their farm, and they hope this is the only missile they'll ever see. Chris Brown, CBC News, near the Israel-Lebanon border.
The Israeli kibbutz near Oz is one of the many places that came under attack by Hamas October 7th. It's located about 2 hours south of Jerusalem, near the Gaza border. Dozens of people who lived there were murdered. Many more were taken hostage. A Canadian is one of the missing. CBC News senior correspondent Susan Ormiston has been given access to the kibbutz by the Israeli military, and she brings us this report.
A massacre happened here. On the early morning of October 7th, the family was sleeping here peacefully when they woke up to the sounds of shouting and gunfire, and Hamas militants had broken in to this kibbutz called Nir Oz, 2 kilometers from the Gaza border. They marauded around the homes here, killing people, dragging them out of the homes. Many were trapped in their safe rooms for hours and hours before the Israeli Defense Forces were able to rescue them. 400 people lived here, and about 100 are unaccounted for. They're either dead or they're hostages in Gaza. And one of those missing, believed to be a hostage, is a Canadian named Judy Weinstein. She and her husband lived just down the walk here. They were outdoors going for an early morning walk when they came upon the militants. They shot at them, injuring the husband badly. Judy was able to call her daughter in Singapore and talk to her about her terror until suddenly the phone cut off. We spoke to a man here named Ron who knows Judy Weinstein and told us they don't know exactly where she is.
We don't know. Judy and Gadi, they were like a sportsman. Every morning, around 6 o'clock, 6:30, every day they used to go out to make their first walking tour. They walk a lot, they do a lot of activity. The only thing that we know is that around 6 o'clock they start, they walk, they went out from the south gate. Later on, they call, and Judy mentioned they called to the guys in response to the emergency here, to Aryeh Itzik, and she told him Gadi is injured, and that's the last connection that we know from them.
But the daughter told CBC that her mother is believed to be a hostage in Gaza because they haven't found her body, and they have heard pings of her phone somewhere in Gaza, but it's not confirmed that she is still alive. The residents of Nir Oz say that this is a catastrophe. They will live with the terror and trauma of that day and what you see forever. But they say they do want to rebuild their kibbutz and believe that never again can Israel allow Hamas militants to get so close. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, in the kibbutz of Nir Oz in southern Israel.
Immigration, Social Security, and Canada's pandemic response all came in for scrutiny in today's Auditor General's reports.
Ultimately, these blind spots identified in all of our reports reduce the public service's ability to deliver programs and services that meet people's needs.
For seniors, Auditor General Karen Hogan warned computer systems critical to old age security and Canada pension payments need immediate modernizing. Surveying 2020's pandemic relief payments, the report said they were effective, but that unwarranted payments exceeded $4 billion, with $27 billion needing further investigation. On immigration, she said a serious backlog exists in permanent residency applications, worst in the refugee category. And those serious backlogs had an average waiting time of 30 months. With more on that story, here's the CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian.
It's not exactly a secret that immigration paperwork has been hit with delays in Canada. Now, a new Auditor General's report shows where the impact is heaviest.
People applying to refugee programs waited the longest, on average close to 3 years. At the end of 2022, 99,000 refugees were still waiting for a decision on their application. And in the current processing environment, many will be waiting years.
Hogan says Ottawa has kept no track of existing workloads as it assigned immigration cases to different offices and found prioritizing some programs due to recent international emergencies like mass displacement of Afghans and Ukrainians led to overall delays.
There's only so many resources across the 87 offices that process these applications. So that is the domino effect of adding priorities over already having set limits. So what we were concerned was that the government, this department was not analyzing their results along different lines.
And then there is the mental health toll the waiting takes on applicants, says this refugee advocate.
It's choking. Some of them break down. They just start just crying. And from that moment, even some of them will say, oh, I will prefer go back and risk being killed.
The Immigration Department says it is aware of the shortcomings.
It's clear that when government has priorities, we expect the civil service to implement those priorities. But we also have to look at what the effects of those are. And I think those are things that we have not appreciated as well as we should.
The Auditor General suggested Canada's overall ambitious immigration levels also hindered the department's ability to reduce its backlog. But Miller says the country's economy depends on immigration, and reducing numbers would also reduce his department's resources to process them. Canada expects to welcome close to 500,000 permanent residents next year. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ottawa says it has moved 41 Canadian diplomats out of India, along with 42 of their family members. India had issued a demand for what it says would be parity in the number of diplomats present in the two countries. The immigration minister says lower staff levels will slow the processing of visas and permits, but he said the services would still be available.
Our visa application centers are operated by third-party contractors, so they won't be impacted and will continue to function as normal. Applicants will still be able to receive administrative support, transmit passports, and submit their biometrics at one of our 10 centers in India.
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says India threatened to revoke diplomatic immunity from the Canadian diplomats and their families, but Canada would not respond in kind. The diplomatic standoff between Canada and India developed when Justin Trudeau accused India's government of involvement in the June killing of a Canadian Sikh independence activist. Drills and information sessions were held around the world today, including in Canada, to prepare for earthquakes. How BC is getting ready after the break. This was a day of global preparedness, specifically for earthquakes. Drills and information sessions were held around the world, and that included in British Columbia, which is home to several fault lines. The CBC's Renee Filipponi has that story.
All right, so this is what it feels like to be in a magnitude 8 earthquake. It is shaking really hard. This is an earthquake simulator called the Quake Cottage, and it's part of the Great Shakeout. It is a global earthquake drill. Millions of people participating today so they can be prepared. The message is when you see or you feel the earth shake, you're supposed to drop, cover, and hold to protect yourself.
We want to build some muscle memory. We want to be able to immediately drop to the ground when we feel the earth shaking, cover our heads, get underneath a sturdy object like a table if you can, wait for 60 seconds after the ground stops shaking, then you feel safe to leave, you can do that.
Now, if you live in British Columbia, the message has always been it's not a matter of if, but when there will be a major earthquake. So there is new technology now that can give people a heads up so they can know before the major shaking begins. They're called earthquake early warning systems. One has been developed by Ocean Networks Canada. They have sensors in the ocean and along the south coast. And what they can do is they can detect what's called the primary wave. It's the initial energy coming from the earthquake, which happens before the big shaking begins. And that could give people 30, 60 seconds more of a warning so they can do what they need to do to stay safe. Now, they have some major infrastructure partners they're working with, companies like TransLink, airports, hospitals, to let them know that a major earthquake is going to happen so they can take action to prevent deaths. Now, later on in the spring, the federal government is also releasing its own warning system, and that is going to go direct to your phone in the event of a major earthquake, just like an Amber Alert. It would give you a heads up so you can do what you need to do to protect yourself. And again, that's drop, cover, and hold. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Abbotsford, BC.
Meteorologist John Sauter joins us again to tell us about the shaking we'll have, which will be mainly trees, I guess. How windy is it?
You know, it looks like we could see winds out on the lakes gusting to 70 tomorrow. Southwest Manitoba, the same. Brandon, I think here in Winnipeg, about 60. Wind forecast now that I want to show you. And boy, what a difference from today. Just dead calm in the Red River Valley right now. Well, Winnipeg, 7. Gusting to 9. I don't even think you can really call that a gust. So when we put this in motion, we look for the brighter colors to start showing up from the west, and that's exactly what happens as we head into tomorrow morning in Saskatchewan and then tomorrow afternoon here. So the morning, our winds are still fairly late. Great idea to get out for a walk in the morning, but as we work our way through into the day, here's 4:30. We've got gusts to 57 in Brandon. Now, this is a forecast model, right? So the potential for gusts well above that still there. This is all out of the northwest. Those are the red arrows. Winnipeg at 52, Carman at 57. So not as windy out into the Whiteshell area. And then all of this just sort of settles down a little bit by about the supper hour. There will be a period there where winds are very gusty in the afternoon. So current temperatures still 17 in Eli, 15 downtown, and very warm across into southwestern Manitoba as we look at tomorrow afternoon, or I'm sorry, this day right now. So these are current numbers as we look at the west. I think I got to change the battery. I just went over to my desk to pick up another controller so that I can advance the screen here for you. 19 in Melita, 16s and 17s through the rest of the west. Off into northern Manitoba, we're looking at still some very warm numbers. 2 in Churchill right now, but 10s in Norway House, Flin Flon, and 14 in the Paw in advance of some rain moving our way. All right, forecast conditions, northwestern Ontario tonight. Well, a chance of a shower anyway, and some patchy fog along with that. So northwestern Ontario, southeastern Manitoba is where we have that chance for that patchy fog. Even around the Winnipeg area, not so much up in Gimli, but certainly on the east side of Lake Winnipeg and out into the Whiteshell regions along Highway number 1. In the west, just a few clouds in Brandon, a low of 4. Down to 7, Dauphin, some patchy fog up around Swan River, and lows around 6 to 8 from Portage down through Carman, Morden, and Winkler. And we'll see showers developing in western regions tonight. Showers that were happening today ending in Thompson, but there is more rain on the way for tomorrow. 5 to 10 millimeters in the west and across into Norway House. May even see a few showers in the Gillam area, just a sun cloud mix and 7 in Churchill. In the south, northwest, 50 gusting to 70, but a high of 18. Areas closer to the international border, like Morden, Winkler, up around 20 tomorrow. Emerson at 20, Steinbach at 17, Sprague as well. 5 millimeters of rain and showers out to the east, 5 to 10 in Barons River, and more showers on and off through the day in northwestern Ontario.
Thanks, John.
You bet.
A retail chain we have here in Western Canada, we have in Manitoba as well, is sounding the alarm about violent crime its outlets are facing. Officials point to what's happening in BC cities, in downtown areas, and they're warning store closures could be the result. The CBC's Michelle Goussoub reports.
London Drugs says it's losing millions of dollars a year in stolen merchandise. But the retailer is even more concerned about a rise in violent incidents towards staff. The stories are harrowing.
The employee approached the individual and convinced the individual that they should maybe pay for those items or leave them behind. And as the person left without the items, they pulled out a hatchet and struck that employee.
London Drugs employees are trained to try and de-escalate situations with shoplifters before they call police.
One of the things that maybe people don't understand is it's not in our best interest to arrest somebody or trigger the justice system. We're trying to stop it from happening in the first place and prevent it.
But with violent incidents involving hatchets, knives, and even guns increasing, that training isn't enough to keep employees safe.
We have to look at the hard realities of closing stores in certain markets because the theft, but more importantly, the threat of violence. Our employees just don't want to work in certain downtowns, downtown Nanaimo, downtown Kamloops, downtown Vancouver.
It's difficult to quantify just how many incidents of theft there are in a given year. Data compiled by the Vancouver Police Department shows a slight decrease in theft since 2020, but because they're often not reported, there's concern it may just be the tip of the iceberg. A bill that would make it more difficult for those offenders to be released is currently in front of the Canadian Senate. For now, concerns around staff safety at London Drugs remain. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Older Canadians are most at risk this flu and COVID season, as well as anyone with a pre-existing condition. What vaccines are best to get for those older adults? The story coming up next. There are now different vaccines available for COVID-19 and for the seasonal flu. Which are best to get? Lauren Pelly breaks down what seniors need to know about the various vaccines on offer.
As the temperature dips and more respiratory viruses circulate, medical experts say seniors remain among those most at risk of dire outcomes. During last year's flu season, for example, roughly half of all outbreaks were in long-term care homes. And when it comes to COVID-19, 9 in 10 deaths so far have been among Canadians aged 60 and up. So here's what older Canadians need to know.
We'll just have you in here.
Physicians say vaccines can be a key way for seniors to protect themselves from serious illness.
Seniors tend to be more vulnerable in cold and flu season because their immune systems are not as strong as younger people.
There are 4 key vaccines available for seniors this fall for COVID, influenza, bacterial pneumonia, and respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. Let's start with COVID. Those shots have been updated to better match circulating virus strains. Health Canada has already approved mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, and a third option from Novavax is expected too. A second key vaccine, the annual flu shot. Those doses are now rolling out as well, plus some provinces offer enhanced versions for high-risk seniors, which offer even better protection. Number 3, there are also multiple approved shots to protect against bacterial pneumonia. The condition happens when certain bacteria get into the lungs. The most common is pneumococcal pneumonia, caused by Streptococcus bacteria. Canadian data suggests the death rate is typically up to 7% and even higher among the elderly. Number 4 on the list is new this year, Canada's first vaccine for RSV. It was approved in August for adults 60 and up to combat a virus that can lead to serious lung infections. And while RSV hospital admissions among seniors happen less often than for other diseases like COVID or flu, recent U.S. data showed they're typically linked to more severe disease and ICU stays.
It's only approved for the elderly.
This pharmacist says with so many vaccine options to protect seniors this fall, some Canadians might be confused about what's available.
So if you have questions regarding coverage on different vaccines, especially the ones for respiratory illness, it would be very important for you to have a dialogue with your pharmacist. Your local pharmacist can typically guide you through this. I know it's a bit of a labyrinth, if you will.
The challenge now for many seniors could be affording some of these shots. COVID shots are free for all Canadians, and basic flu shots are too, though in some areas you might have to pay for enhanced options. When it comes to pneumonia shots, eligibility for a free vaccine depends on the province and the product. And for the brand new RSV vaccine, experts expect most seniors will have to pay out of pocket. Bradford, Ontario resident Walter Armstrong already has asthma and wants to avoid catching RSV.
I am at a very high risk if I was to get RSV. If any complication with that would, be the equivalent of a death sentence.
But he was shocked to learn he'd be shouldering the cost of more than $200 for the new vaccine. Tough for Armstrong on a tight monthly budget.
I won't have it this month, I won't have it next month, next year, never. So
his question now,
why the government is not covering this at $256 when we know if a person is hospitalized for up to 5 weeks and on a ventilator, the cost is tens of thousands of dollars.
I just wanted to check where you're at with things.
This geriatrician hopes the RSV shot is eventually covered. But in the meantime, he worries those cost barriers could discourage some of Canada's most vulnerable.
A lot of people right now can't make ends meet, and so how are they going to even undergo this vaccination?
Medical experts say the bottom line for seniors is get all 4 vaccines, if you can, to give yourself the best shot at staying healthy.
That was CBC's Lauren Pelly. By the way we checked, that RSV vaccine is not subsidized in Manitoba. One pharmacy we called is charging $267 for the shot. John's 7-day forecast is next, and then we've got your daily lift. Stay with us.
Okay, here is your 7-day forecast, and I warn you, what you may see may be disturbing to some viewers, but anyway, we'll get to that. Northwest, 40 gusting to 60 tomorrow afternoon, 12 on Saturday, 13 on Sunday, and then look ahead. We got some rain on Monday, much cooler next week, and that is morning snow tapering to flurries on Wednesday, and the high on Wednesday and Thursday, just 3 degrees. You okay? You gonna be all right?
It won't stay, though. It'll be a light
No,
dusting. It'll be
just
fine.
melt.
I can handle that.
Yeah. A New England man has made it his mission to memorialize once booming businesses that have gone bust.
And he does it in a very October way. Here's your daily lift.
I thought it was a creative way to remember these stores that we grew up with and places we grew up with.
The motto, gone but not forgotten. This man plays Halloween-inspired homage by creating tombstone memorials to much-loved businesses that have gone belly up, using roofing materials and a hot knife.
Sears?
Sears, right. Radio Shack, Blockbuster Video. The cemetery's been a big hit over the 3 years since he started the project. He doesn't even have consumers distributing there. You know,
Sears?
come on.
Really?
Sears.
When did Blockbuster close?
Good evening.
Nobody tells me anything.
Thank you for being with us. We're going to take John away now. Good night.